Hey there guys, I'm here today to show you a couple of combos. I recently posted a deck profile for Punk Spright Brave. Because it's a deck profile, I couldn't go super into depth into what the lines looked like, but I wanted to showcase a couple of one-card starters for you today. Today I've got Flag Spreader, Spright Starter, and Emergency Teleport. Effectively, 3 different ways that set you up into some form of Scythe lock. I will say that the Starter and the Plague, their end boards aren't as insane as the E-Tele board, but the point is that you're supposed to have these with other cards. You're supposed to have these with Right, or maybe any hard open Spright cards, potentially Emergency Teleport, lots of things to gas through and make sure that your play goes through. First off, Flag Spreader. This card is the best normal summon in the deck. It is an amazing pitch, and besides that, this card is amazing because it makes health on its own, although you do have to have a card to pitch. Alright, here is going to be the Flag Spreader line. Well, 1 Flag Spreader in hand, 4 cards in hand to simulate card advantage. Let's get started. Normal summon Flag Spreader, link it off into El Mirage, effect Plague Engrave, put a card from hand back on top of deck, special itself. We now have access to Helk. Link these 2 off, make Helk, and then we're going to go effect Helk here, and we're going to go ahead and grab our second Plague. From here, we're going to use these 2 to make Gigantic, and Gigantic is going to start our Spright line for us. Effect Gigantic right here, going into blue, effect blue, search Jet. Jet, search Starter. You do hold the Starter, at least for a little bit. I like to use it to trigger the Dagda. Then we're going to link these 2 off, make Elf. Effect Elf, target blue engrave, special it. We now have enough bodies on board to make our Dagda. Link these 2 off, special Dagda, and now we're going to go ahead and we're going to activate the Starter, and we're going to chain the Dagda. The Dagda is going to set us our Scythe, and then the Starter will grab us either red or carrot. In most cases, blind, I'll go ahead and grab the red because I think it covers more situations. I will say though that in this case right here, the Dagda has been used and is now set your Scythe, so technically if you wanted to continue extending this board into something like an IP Masquerena, should you choose to play it, you could, because you do have the second Plague Engrave that acts as an extender. Personally, I like to keep this for follow-up and think that this board is sufficient, but if you really wanted to, you could extend. So that end board here is going to be the Elf, Dagda, red, set Scythe, 3 cards in hand, assuming that these are non-engine if you played a pure Plague line, of course, right? But now, on your opponent's turn, the cool thing is that you have Helk Engrave, so when your opponent commits a monster to board, you can go effect Elf, targeting Helk, you can special the Helk, and then you have the Helk, effect Helk, into Wonder Magician, and then the Wonder Magician is going to go ahead, and it's going to pop your Scythe for you. The Scythe will trigger, special itself, lock your opponent, and then on resolution of the lock, you can go ahead and use the Wonder Magician effect to make a Baron. Rather threatening overall. If they didn't have the interruptions for the combo itself, they're now going to have to deal with a red that can tribute and destroy because it has the Dagda spotter, and they're going to have to deal with the Baron, all while they're Scythe locked. Alright, now what do we do when all we really have is a Spright Starter, right? This end board is not as cool. It gets the job done though. First off, activate Starter, special blue, effect blue, search Jet, special Jet, search another Starter, which we will use on our opponent's turn. Next, you overlay these 2 into Gigantic, and that Gigantic's going to help you get into your tuner. Effect Gigantic, special Plague, link these 2 off into Helk, effect Helk, special a second Plague, but that first Plague is engraved, which is perfect because now we can go effect Plague, pitch a card back to deck, special it, and use these 2 to make Dagda. So Starter ends up being a 1-card Helk Dagda, locks your opponent, makes Baron on your opponent's turn. Can't really ask for much more, but also it does have the Starter that can go into a carrot or red after you've Scythe locked them. Note, you do have to do it after. 3 cards in hand left over, not bad. Alright, next combo here, E-Tele. You have the 1 E-Tele, you have the 4 blanks, important because we're pitching cards, of course, right? We're going to go ahead and we're going to activate the E-Tele. It's going to get our Xiamen. We're going to go effect Xiamen here, searching the Foxy Tune. Once we have the Foxy Tune, we can go effect Foxy Tune, pitching itself and any card from hand to special summon Deer Note. Now, in most cases here, you would think this is a Chaos Ruler line, but we just aren't playing Chaos Ruler because we don't need it. The cool thing here is that now we're actually going to link these 2 off into Helk, and it's going to be chain 1 Helk, chain 2 Deer Note, not targeting the Xiamen, but targeting the Foxy Tune because it's an 8. So this is why the Italy line is good, because it gets you the 8. Then, off of effect health, we get the Plague, and we get to make a free Baron. This Baron goes crazy because now you have a way to Scythe lock your opponent in the standby phase, playing around Dark Ruler. Next, we're going to go effect Plague Engrave, put a card back top of deck, special it, and then we're just going to proceed and effectively play the line that we did earlier, in all honesty. So I'll make it quick. Halcyon Plague, into Gigantic, effect Gigantic, into blue, effect blue, grab Jet, effect Jet, grab Starter, link these two off, into Elf, effect Elf, grab our blue back, blue and Gigantic, make Dagda. The Starter triggers the Dagda, setting our Scythe, specialing our red, and then we can go effect Baron, popping our Scythe, so that we can go ahead and lock them during their standby phase. Other cool thing about this is that after the Baron tags out on your opponent's turn, the Baron's going to tag itself out. It's going to special the Scythe. Okay, so the cool thing here is that after they're Scythe locked, we actually still have access to Hulk, and Baron is now put back in the extra deck. So if they commit a body to board, we can go Elf, special to Hulk, and then we can proceed to play just like it was the last line and remake our Baron. The only difference being that now when the Wonder Magician is summoned, we can use it to pop our opponent's back row instead of the Scythe. A word of caution though, if you play this line with any of the Brave cards to support it, right? So like Griffin, you do need to be careful about putting Griffin on board into decks that can super poly you. Personally, if I play into a deck like Tyr, I actually just hold the Griffin in hand forever. One, because it can potentially clog your board, but two, because I don't want my Baron and my Griffin to get super polyed off. So you have to keep in mind the Griffin to quick effect, and one thing you can do is if you're playing into a deck like Tyr that isn't really playing hand traps, you don't have a need to special summon this card, so you save it for your opponent's turn, and then after you've Scythe locked them, you can special the Griffin. But yeah, that's the Italy line. It goes completely insane. Alright, and that's it. That's a quick showcase of the 3 1-card starters in the deck and how they effectively get to Scythe lock. I will say again though, it's very rare that you're playing them independently like this. More often than not in actual matches, you are playing them with each other. Really means that you're more likely to have like a Griffin on board or something of that nature. The ceiling is just slightly higher, also slightly more resilient to hand traps. I will say though that one thing I didn't show very well in the combos were how well Spright Elf does at protecting your board. You can choose pretty well of what you want the elf to be pointing to, whether that's like a red or like a Hulk or like a Dagda or your Baron, but that is up to personal preference depending on the match, of course. Anyways, hope you enjoyed seeing the lines and they were rather informative. Hope you have some success playing this deck should you choose to try it. Pile decks are amazing. Scythe lock people before it gets banned.